Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thanks so much for joining me. I am sharing a card that features one of the newest die sets from Spellbinders, which is from the Out and About collection. We're going to use Roller Disco Dottie today, and she is just delightful. Check out this sweet little pup. I die cut it out of white cardstock, a little bit of black, and a little bit of red. These are all of the dies that are in this particular set. Right here, I did not use those two dies. I'm going to show you what they're for. They're for little boots and roller skates, which is so ridiculously cute. If you checked out my blog yesterday, you would have seen that card. If you'd like more information on that one, please go check out my blog. So I've got this red and white polka dot cardstock from Echo Park Paper. It's from the A Magical Place collection. So cute. And I thought that the exterior spacing or the negative space of where I cut Roller Disco Dottie out of would be perfect for a shaker. So she's going to be at the bottom layer, and then we'll have the shaker above her, which is kind of a fun way to do it. I grabbed the Tiny Dots embossing folder from Spellbinders. You guys know I love this one. I use it all the time. I'm so glad I have it. And I embossed that layer, and look at how cute that is. Oh, I just love those dots. But I wanted to step it up a little bit, so I grabbed Nocturne ink. This is VersaFine Clair, and I super gently kissed the surface with that ink. I kind of botched it a little bit in that upper right corner, but it's no big deal. Just super carefully rubbing it across those dots because I don't want it to hit the background if possible. This is just a fun way to kind of accent those polka dots a little bit. So here you could see she fits perfectly because I die cut her out of that space. So now we're going to turn this into a shaker. I've got some clear acetate. This is just from an old stamp set, and Tear-It tape from Imagine, and we're going to apply the Tear-It tape to the back. When you're doing this, you don't need to be as precise as you do with the foam tape portion of your shaker because this is just the acetate area. But we want to be careful to not cover that little bit of the tail. So I tore a piece off and I'm just leaving a space there. So when you're making the shaker, you want to make sure that the edges are all perfectly sealed and there's no gaps anywhere so that your bits don't fall out. But with the acetate layer, you don't really have to be quite so careful, but of course you want to seal it as good as you can. So I've got that Tear-It tape all around, and now I'm going to just remove the release paper. This release paper comes off really easily. As you saw, it tears really easily, which makes the whole process go just a little bit faster. And since this is a tedious part of the process, it going faster is a good thing. So I'm just going to carefully lay that acetate on there, burnish it down with my fingers a little bit, and then remove the excess. I will say it's a little easier to remove the excess if you have the good side facing up, as I do here, but you can do it however it's more comfortable for you. Now I have foam tape from scrapbook.com. It's 1/8 of an inch wide and 3 millimeters thick, so our shaker bits will have lots of room to move around, which is awesome. We're going to start adding the foam tape now, and if you noticed in my thumbnail, we have some more advanced techniques for this shaker, and we'll be doing that shortly. So I'm adding a couple of strips at the bottom so that it goes all the way down so that we don't have any warping or bending happening. And in a moment, you're going to see me do a technique that I learned from Christina Werner like ages ago. And this is to get foam tape to go around in a curve. So what you need to do is remove the release paper. The release paper doesn't have give to it the way foam tape does. So if you remove that release paper, you can easily create swoopy lines and curves, and you wouldn't be able to do that if you left that paper on there. So look at how nicely we can curve that foam tape around the dog. It just goes so much easier, and this ensures that our shaker bits are not going to kind of fall too far away from the dog that you won't be able to see them anymore. So if we were to just go in a rectangle, which you could totally do if you want to, there's a chance that your sequence is going to fall in between where the legs are or underneath the tail, and you won't see them anymore. So doing this sort of, I guess, more advanced technique, for lack of a better term, is going to ensure that your shaker things are going to stay in, I guess, frame so that you can see them all the time. So I've got this fun little shaker set up. There's some white, there's some black, there's some red, some chevron. These are from Doodle's Paper Playground, who is unfortunately no longer in business. But if you do happen to have some of their sequin mixes, they were called sparkle blends. This one was called Pirate Treasure. I removed all of the pirate heads and some of the larger gems. But if you've got red, black, and white shaker bits, then you can do this too. You can just kind of mix your own if you want, or change up the colors however you want to. You don't have to use red. You can have a different polka dotted background if you want. You know, I like for you guys to kind of take my ideas and run with them, right? So now I am carefully removing that release paper. The foam tape from scrapbook.com is wonderful. It releases super easily. So here is another more advanced technique. We've got that the completed Dottie, and we want her to be in frame, right? Lined up with the rest of the shaker window. We don't want her to be hidden. So instead of trying to adhere her somehow and perhaps misalign, use another piece of acetate to seal it off. So this way we can get her placed. You'll see how in a moment, and you don't have to worry about, misaligning it. So now I've got this piece of black cardstock. I'm going to do it on a piece of white paper because it's really tricky to see on my black glass mat. I just have to trim it down a little bit. Originally, my thought was that I was going to have that black piece span the entire width of the card. So it would have been 4 1/4, right? But I thought that I was going to mess it up, truth be told. So I cut it down to 4 inches. My red and white panel is actually 4 by 5 1/2. Typically I do 4 by 5 1/4, but I wanted it to reach the top of the card and the bottom of the card. So we only have 1/8 of an inch on either side of the card base showing. You'll see that later. So now what I'm going to do is I attached some more Tear-It tape around the window for Dottie, and I'm going to use some Barely Arts glue to adhere Dottie to that black cardstock. Now this is going to be a little fiddly. There could very well be a better way to do this, and I've probably done it in the past, but for some reason I'm dealing with a little brain fog right here, so we're doing it this way. So I'm picking Dottie up, and I'm going to align her with that window that we've created. And now I'm going to carefully place her down with the top panel, with that shaker window, onto that black cardstock. And there we go. So that worked out pretty well. It wasn't too bad. I think that she's aligned really well, and she's so cute. You have all of those shaker bits on top of her. It's just fun and playful, and I think it's adorable. So using some clear acetate to back your shaker also often allows your shaker bits to move around freer than if they're on cardstock. The acetate is slicker, right? So try it. Give it a try. See if you like how that works with your shakers. I grabbed the Sending Sunshine sentiments. We got to say that slower. And I have the sentiment that says, "It's always a good day to have a good day. Wishing you a great day." I thought that was so cute. It's just a fun sentiment set, even if you don't have the rest of the dies, or any of the dies for that matter, from that collection. It's just a really nice set of sentiments. I encourage you to check it out. So I grabbed a piece of black cardstock that was already cut into a strip, my VersaMark ink. This is a nice sticky ink, and it's going to allow us to dump embossing powder on top of it. And when we shake off that excess, the embossing powder will only stick to where that VersaMark was. So I'm just using a small stamping block to stamp that sentiment down onto the cardstock. And now I just have some white embossing powder. This is a detail white embossing powder. There's a couple of stray granules of powder, so I'm just using a brush to kind of wipe them away. It only takes a few seconds, but it makes a big difference. You don't want those extra pieces to be kind of where you don't want them. They kind of take away from the sentiment. And now I am going to, you can see how nice that looks. I'm going to dump the rest of that back into the jar, move that off to the side, and grab my heat tool so that we can heat set it. You'll get to watch it melt. So I've got that turned on. And in a couple of moments, we will heat that up. And you can see that it goes from that dull white to more of a shiny white. It gets crisper and brighter. How cute is that? Such a nice sentiment. You can use that for anybody at almost any time. It's totally appropriate. Okay, so I've got my Tim Holtz Tonic Guillotine Trimmer, and we're going to just trim that bad boy down, and then we're going to adhere the rest of our layers. I am loving this card. There are so many polka dots on this card. It makes me so happy. Polka dots are just something that just bring a smile to my face. It's just a happy pattern. I don't know. All right, so we're using some more Bearly Arts glue to adhere that panel down to our card base. Just like so. And you could see that I have that red background layer going from the top of the card to the bottom with only a little bit of that white showing. I just wanted to do something different this time. I decided to pop up the sentiment. Again, doing something a little bit different this time. I wanted it to be more even with that shaker layer. So I'm adding a couple of strips of that 3mm foam tape from scrapbook.com. Not worrying about it being totally perfect. It's fine. I just wanted it to be a little bit more raised up than if I were to just adhere it right to that red layer. Look how cute this is, you guys. Oh my goodness. So what do you think? You're going to try these techniques? I hope that you do. I'd love to see what you make. I think it's adorable. And we can have our little shaker bitch shaking around Dottie. She's a happy little pup. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you learned a couple of things, like I said. If you did, let me see what you made. Tag me in your projects. I'd love to see them. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Be well. Stay safe. Peace out.